Well, hello, PraiseCharts friends. Ryan Dahl here, and today we're going to be talking with Brett Perkins from Nashville, Tennessee, Journey Worship Co. An amazing church. They've got some new songs available with PraiseCharts, and we're going to show you about them and just talk a little bit about the heart of worship and in behind the great ministry that they have. So Brett is standing by. I'm looking forward to talking to him and getting to know him right with all of you here. So let's take it. Introducing Brett Perkins. Here we go. Brett from Nashville.
What's up?
How are you doing? You know what? I love Nashville. I go there several times a year. It's just so beautiful, such rich culture. It must be so great to have a worship ministry, a church ministry, and a place where there's probably some good musicians available and good people with good heart. Hey?
Yes, it's really awesome. We're actually in Lebanon, right outside of Nashville, and so
Yeah,
we're close enough for a good date every once in a while, but we're far enough away that we miss all the traffic. So it's
you
great.
do. Oh, yeah, for sure. That big circle that goes around the city of Nashville. You can just go
Yes,
round and around and around. So that's how it goes.
yes.
Tell me a little bit about Journey Worship Co. What does the Co stand for? Is that the community, the corporation, what else starts with CO? I don't know.
Yeah, okay. So quick answer is company. And
Okay.
the I'm trying to think of what all to give you here.
Hmm.
In 2020, everybody was impacted by COVID, and it was a good time to assess everything that we had in front of us as a church. And so when we started looking at our song choices and the different resources of the church,
Yeah.
we started realizing as a team that content seemed to have been um, sacrificed at the altar of creativity in a lot of worship songs. So there was a bunch
Yeah.
of worship songs that were resourced in the church that were creative and cool
Yeah.
and maybe even beautiful at times, but the content that was being packaged was not
Yeah.
very clear.
Yeah.
And so when it came time for the writer to decide, do I want to be artistic in my expression or do I want to be clear, there was a choice of artistic expression, and
Mm-hmm.
it trumped content. So
Mm-hmm.
for us, we were like, you know what, we can take to Twitter like a bunch of other people and not move the needle at all,
Right.
or we can
Yeah.
start writing truth for our people. And so we started doing that.
Yeah.
And the name the name actually came when we started thinking about, all right, well, we have some songs, we want to put them out, we need a band name. And lo and behold, there was a band called Journey that was already out, and our church is the Journey Church. And
Yeah.
so we were like, you know what, we can't take Journey, they're already pretty known. And as weird as it sounds, we were actually going through this Amazon Prime series as a staff. This is going to sound weird, but we were going through Amazon Prime series as a staff, Band of Brothers,
Yep.
and the company of the military that they followed was Easy Company, and they were at the front lines that actually shifted the war in favor of America. And so um, we were like, you know what? If we're going to be a band, let's be Journey Worship Co., the ones who are on the front lines, fighting for truth for our
Yeah.
people. So
Yeah.
that's a really that's as quick of a version as I can give you.
It's beautiful. Well, Brett, I'll tell you, last night I went to sleep listening to your songs. I went onto Spotify just to sort of, because I hadn't heard it before. It's new to me. Maybe to give some people some context, and I hope this is an encouragement or this is a good word to say, but it reminded me a bit of City of Light. The City of
Yeah.
Light has a kind of a vibe. So if anybody's sort of wondering where what we're talking about and the kind of vibe, some of the Getty writers and things like that. I feel like it's just a beautiful fit, and I appreciate that you seem to have like a clear heart and a vision of something specific that you want to offer into the worship community, and bringing that kind of depth, certainly with artistic expression, but not artistic at the sacrifice of the depth. And I appreciate it. The songs
Yeah.
sounded beautiful. In fact, we do want to talk about some of the songs that are on Praise Charts. I heard that maybe you have used Praise Charts or come around it in the past in your own worship leading world. So we're gonna look at
Yeah,
Praise Charts together, and you can see like there you are. There's your songs
yeah.
right on Praise Charts.
So it's kind of wild. I mean, I'm not. I don't. I'll geek out a little bit here. I mean,
Okay.
it's fun to see songs that we've contributed to be on uh, praise charts now.
Mm-hmm.
When I was an intern at a church, I didn't study music. I wasn't around. I was around music, but I didn't go to college for it. I didn't go to school for it. And so my early introduction to praise charts was at a church where I was putting music together from praise charts.
Hmm.
My role, one of my roles each week was to put together uh, viola and
Wow. Oh
violin
my
and
goodness. This is
flute
it.
and oboe and all these
Yeah.
things. And at the top was praise charts.
All right.
Um,
Yeah.
I think you interviewed my old boss, Travis Cottrell. He was I
Travis
was
is
with
like a good friend of mine.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
this is
So
great. I love Travis.
I did
Shout out
some
to Travis.
snooping too because I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure I knew what I was getting into. And I saw
Okay.
on your channel you had an
Yeah.
interview with him, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's
There
who
he is.
introduced me to Praise Charts. So it's pretty
Yeah.
bizarre that
Oh, what a guy.
we get to contribute and partner
Yeah.
with you guys. It's really awesome.
Yeah. Well, I love the heart, and and even for you to share about how you were bringing together flute and oboe and strings, and because that's one of the things that's unique about what we're trying to bring to Praise Charts. Like you're trying to bring the depth of content and lyrics, and then blending that with artistry. We're trying to make a place for people to belong on stage with whatever instrument it is that they play,
Yeah,
whether it's the oboe or violin, or there's so many acoustical instruments that have been with us for hundreds of years, the
right.
brass and the strings, and thousands even of years. So we just are excited about bringing those instruments into the sound of modern worship and coming in behind
Love
your
it.
lyrics. And so well, let's just, why don't you give me a little introduction into a couple of songs that you have. I can kind of click around here live in Praise Charts, but tell me about this song Once and For All. Right now we've just got the chord charts, and these are from you guys. So we're making this available, but soon
Yeah,
hopefully we'll be able to write some piano parts and vocal parts and maybe even some flute and violin. Wouldn't that be great? Hey, if we
that'd
could
be
have
awesome.
that. But a beautiful song. Take me into the lyrics and some of the heartbeat behind it a bit.
Yeah, so Once and For All is just, it's a modern day hymn. We wanted to write
Yeah.
a hymn that captures the whole gospel, God, man, Christ response. And it's really interesting. So the idea of it came from our pastor. He's been a big writer on these songs with us and a huge supporter. And he was like, I want to write a song. And he literally said it that way. I want to write a song that covers the gospel, God, man, Christ response. And so I
Mm.
thought, okay, well, that'll feel like a hymn in my mind. And so I resonated with that. And then the guy who produces all of our stuff, he was actually in the room with his brand new daughter, and her name is Hollis Jude.
Hmm.
And so he had Jude on his mind, and the doxology of Jude is what ended up being the big refrain at the end of the song. And
Yeah.
so we started writing with that doxology in mind, and with that storyline of the gospel, God above all earthly things, and then like we walk into the creation of man, the fall of man, the introduction of Christ, and then our response to the only God our Savior and to Jesus Christ our Lord be all glory and dominion for all time,
Hmm.
now and forevermore. And so it's been an incredible anthem for our church to interact with the gospel in a way that I think reflects the heart behind and even the emotion behind uh, the reality of the gospel. So
Hmm.
that's been a big song for us.
Beautiful. Let's talk a little bit about just some broad stroke, like encouraging people who are listening in, trying to like piece together their own worship ministry and developing that culture of worship and that sort of, ability to merge together great content and theology with a beautiful artistic expression. I mean, it's the pursuit of so many people, and I'm imagining lots of worship pastors out there might feel exasperated by the thought of like, I don't know, I just don't feel like it's all coming together, and people are just standing in church. I don't know if they're responding. There's so many things that go on in our hearts as worship leaders as we're leading churches. So maybe you could just take me into some of the story of how you guys are building that worship culture at Journey Worship. So why don't we just
Yeah,
start with this word worship, just to start, like even thinking about what is worship. I wrestle personally with that word because I feel like music doesn't contain, it's so much more than music. And even
yeah.
to be a worship pastor, you know that we're talking about the guy that puts the music together and stands behind the guitar and sings, but it's like there's so much more to being a shepherd, a worship pastor. So
Mhm.
tell me some of your thoughts about that.
Yeah, there so many things came to mind,
Hmm.
and so maybe some of this I'll be everywhere, and you can maybe
Yeah.
rein it in.
All
As
right.
far as worship goes, I think it's good to note that we were all created to worship, and
Yeah.
worship. I think you do worship a disservice when you just say it's music or singing,
Yeah.
because your life is worship to God. You're always pointing people to something, and we always have a motive underneath everything that we do, and it can be worshipful to the Lord, or it could be self-serving. I think those are your two options. um, and so what is worship? In the context of a service, I think it's a response to truth and being mindful of the truth and aware of the truth, and then responding to that. I think Matt Merker, he's
Hmm.
a he wrote for Nine Marks, and one of his books, I think it's called Congregational Worship.
Hmm.
He said worship in the absence of truth is idolatry, and essentially what we get to with that is you need to be in the Word, and you need to know what the Word says, because worship without the Word will lead to idolatry
Hmm.
every time, I believe.
Hmm.
And so worship it's a big word, but in the context of the service, I think the Word, the Scriptures, the Bible needs to be what drives your services together.
Yeah.
And on a personal level, uh, if you were to kind of zoom out, then the Word needs to be what drives you in your life. And so it needs to influence how you interact with people. It needs to influence
Hmm.
how you make your decisions. It needs to influence how you treat your spouse or how you raise your kids. Worship in the absence of truth will always lead to idolatry, I think, in all things as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good perspective. Sometimes I think when I lead worship, on a week to week basis, like what is the impact that we are leaving? What is the actual reason we're coming together on a Sunday morning singing these songs? What do you think about like how does it impact or change someone who is, they come to church, they're standing, they're all singing together. What's the ripple out of their lives in participating in that in a weekly basis? What do you think is the impact?
Yeah. It's going to look different for everybody because you don't know what everyone's carrying.
Yeah.
And I think so often as worship leaders, it's easy um, to judge how well of a job we did based on reaction.
Hmm.
And I think that's unhealthy. You don't know which spouses came in on two wheels because they couldn't get their kids ready and they're just at each other's throats.
Yeah.
You don't know who just lost their job. You don't know who just found out they had a miscarriage. Uh, you don't know who just got the raise in the room.
Hmm.
And so some of the reactions in the room will have nothing to do with what you do.
So good.
um,
I love it.
But being in front of people, so often, because we're fleshly people, we take credit for their reactions and their
Yeah.
responses, which is super unhealthy, because if the Spirit's moving and there's a response of someone with their hands raised or weeping, if you take responsibility for their uh, non-reactions, then you will
Yeah.
take responsibility for their positive reactions,
Right.
which is equally sinful, I think,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
equally uh, hurtful. So I think going in with the perspective that the gospel is what's going to shift the room,
Hmm.
and putting yourself under the authority of the word and trusting that you have to look past what you think the people want, and you have to give them what they need, which is the gospel. If the gospel is what sets you free, if Jesus is your only hope, then he's the one who will set them free, and he's their only hope,
Hmm.
regardless of the situation. If they've had an incredible week, then they need to be reminded that Jesus is better. If they've had a bad week, they need to be reminded that Jesus is still good. And so I think we put too much emphasis on the reaction of the room,
Yeah.
whereas I think we could think more about the engagement and response. But sometimes visibly, it doesn't look different. They might
Right.
they might look like they have a scowl on their face when
Yeah.
internally God's breaking them down.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've seen that time and time again. Somebody, they may look like they're mad the whole service, and then they come up after service and they say that was one of the most incredible,
Yeah.
enlightening sermons that was preached, or songs that was sung, or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. So I think I would just caution any worship leader. I think it's good to know that you've got people with you. You don't want to leave them, and you don't want to be
Yeah.
completely absent minded and believe that you're leading well when in reality you're not. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I think you have to be really careful with your own perspective to not um, to not be too interested in the reaction of people,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
So good. I mean, you're speaking right to me because I, for one, am super sensitive to, I'm sure lots of us worship leaders are that. I'm sensitive to how people look, how they're visibly responding. It affects me, and it's like it's something that I almost have to go in intentionally and remind myself that I need to move beyond the immediate response, whether like what you're saying, which is so powerful, even if it's good, that could be something different, or if it's bad, or if they're downcast, or whatever their facial expressions, we all would love to have everybody just hands in the air, fully engaged. I mean, it's
Right,
the epic YouTube experience of worship, which
right.
sometimes perpetuates this expectation or maybe disappointment that how does that percolate in our own church expressions. So
Yeah, and to what you're saying, that was something I thought about. Um, my pastor and I talk about this a lot. I think social media has almost, like, it's been helpful, but it's also almost damaged
hmm
worship leaders and worship experiences. And I say that loosely,
hmm
at churches, because so many people have access to other churches that are nothing like theirs.
hmm
And contextually, their church will never be that. There's so many small churches that I think some leaders of those small churches have this idea that they're going to make it a similar experience with no resources and not the quality of musicians as these, like, massive churches online that you see. And so
yeah,
they almost chase this ghost
yeah,
that they'll never catch.
yeah,
When in reality, it'd be better for them to just look at the context, look at what the Lord's put in their hands, and serve them with what you have.
right,
I think that serves your people way better than trying to give a kind of an off-brand version of something else that's happening. Because
yeah,
in reality, what's happening in that room, it might look like a big movement, but it also might not be.
yeah,
And so you can't discern what's happening in those rooms. But you also don't want to, like, I would encourage any any worship pastor at a smaller church, what you're doing matters,
Mm-hmm.
and what you're doing is eternal. And it's
Mm-hmm.
an incredible opportunity that you have. And you don't have to be what's down the road, because what's down the road is not trying to be you.
Mm-hmm.
Be you. God's
Mm-hmm.
given you a gifting and a vision, and He's given you resources. And with all of that, your passions, your vision, your resources, your context, your location, your people, all of that, that should give you a picture of what it could look like at your church in the most effective and efficient way to serve them in your
Yeah.
worship experience. So don't try to be someone else. Just be who you are, where you are, and
Yeah.
I think God will bless that.
Yeah. I wonder if you having a church, being in Nashville, which is like the epicenter of studio musicians. I mean, the hyper quality of music that comes out of Nashville, just in general, is just on supercharge, right? And so you even have to experience that. Like, what is Journey Worship Co? How do you sit as an authentic faith community inside a city that is like energized by music
Yeah.
industry? It's just like it's almost like a contrast, attention that exists there. I mean, there's some fantastic churches I know in worship, and I'm
Oh,
sure Journey Worship is like that. But I can just imagine that tension also that it brings to the table of, here I am immersed and surrounded by the industry of music for the world on all levels and genres. So
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I don't say what I just previously said
Mm-hmm.
just to the people listening. I'm speaking that to my own heart too,
Yeah.
because we do. We have some incredible churches with some amazing music that's being birthed out of them. You
Yeah.
have Church of the City. You have
Yep.
uh, the Belonging
Yeah.
down the road. You have Brentwood Baptist with Travis and the choir and the incredible things that they do there that we can't,
Yeah.
that we'll never do at our church.
Yeah.
But even down the road, you have great bands, and so we have to look at, like, what are our convictions?
Mm-hmm.
What's the mission of our church? What are our values as a church? And how do we fit in the middle of all that in a way that's representative of who we are as a
Mm-hmm.
church?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we chase uh, being somebody else, then we'll always kind of just be like the knockoff version of somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we can be a really good version of who we are
Mm-hmm.
if we really dig into who we are and try to present that.
Mm-hmm. Brett, this has been really encouraging. There's a lot of words that you've spoken that I think that when we show this video through various sources, I almost even want to pull out some sections and just remind people of that heart that you're bringing. It's very powerful, and it comes from a authentic heart, and I appreciate that. And
Awesome.
thank you for the unique angle that you are bringing to the the worship repertoire in Praise Charts, with the songs that you're writing and just focusing on great lyric, great content, the heart of the gospel, and beautiful, sweet melodies. So I hope that there's lots of more music coming from you guys that we can share in through Praise Charts. So thank you
Yeah.
very much for that.
Yeah, well, thank you. We do. We're releasing volume 2. So these songs, we have volume 1 that's already out,
Yeah,
and this these songs that are out and that are coming are all part of volume 2 live. And so, yeah, there's a lot more coming, and we have a Christmas record coming up uh,
oh
around Christmas time as well to hopefully resource the church as well. So, yeah, there are more songs on the way. So,
yeah,
I'm thankful for this partnership, and
yeah,
um, I'm excited to see the different versions that are going to come from these songs. We always, if someone ever asks us for charts or resources, we're always like, "Hey, send us a video. We want to see it," because we just
yeah.
love seeing different versions, whether it's acoustic or we had a song called "Come to the Lord" and a church did it, and there was like this clarinet solo in the middle of it. We were like,
Oh,
"That's not how
beautiful.
we wrote it, but that's amazing."
Yes, I love it.
So anyway,
All
it was
right.
cool.
Well, we are there with you for the journey, if I can say that.
Awesome.
So I love that. Love your heart. And thank you for taking this time with us. I hope that you are encouraged as a worship pastor today, as you've heard Brett and I talking about some real, delicate, sensitive issues that we process as worship pastors and worship leaders. And these are principles that you can even bring to your team, even like right before the stage, just reminding people, hey, just before we go on stage, just remember there's 1,000 different things going on in every person's heart and mind who are coming into this sanctuary. And we need to lead for the broken and the joyful and everything in between. And there's a lot going on. So, but when we pair the gospel with these great melodies that are being written, it just is an opportunity for those truths to percolate all throughout the day and the week. And that's why I think worship ministry is such a great world to be a part of. So I love that.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Brett. This is Ryan and Brett. And we're glad to be able to offer this for you from Praise Charts. And I hope that you'll continue to join us. Thanks, Brett.
Yeah.
Great
Thank you
to
so
get to
much.
know you today. All right. God bless you all. See you then.